So at the moment, this is the topic today. The discussion is about overtime and working late. I guess most of you have listened to the latest news that DNAG is now paying overtime. First thing that people remember, this happened like a few months ago, I believe, and that's the starting of the discussion, is that actually DNAG was not the first company in the UK to start considering paying overtime. The first company to do that was Outpost. So Outpost actually published this on July, and they were the first company in the UK in visual effects starting to offer overtime. And there was no pressure from the government because it's not illegal to not pay overtime. I don't know if I noticed that a lot of people were surprised that they didn't know that overtime was not paid in the UK, but it isn't. So that means that the last 20 years of visual effects were all done without payment of overtime. And then followed after that was DNAG. So DNAG announced this, I think, a few days ago. They've also announced that they are going to start paying 1.5 rate of overtime as well. So these are the two first companies in London, and this is a major big deal. It's a big deal, you know. But there are still a lot of problems in the industry, and a lot of companies are working overtime, and we still have like a huge issue regarding this. So anyway, now before we discuss this with the audience, I wanted to show you how much of a big deal this is. Such a big deal that even the Hollywood Reporter is actually announcing this. And it's so funny the way that they frame it, if you think about it. They frame it like the visual effects house that made Dune is now paying overtime on the UK. Now, obviously, this opens a lot of questions. First of all, for me, in terms of questions, is that, okay, they've decided to pay overtime now, but what about the last 10 years? You know, these companies have been profiting with the time of people for a long, long, long time. And that's why I wanted to have this discussion, because I think it's enough. It's enough for them to be profiting from our hard work. And it's enough for them to literally joking around with our time, you know, because when you don't get paid overtime, literally your rate is going down and down and down. It's almost like, you know, if you're getting paid £200 a day, and if you do overtime for like 60, 70 hours a week, then you're actually not getting paid £200 a day. You're just getting paid maybe 100 or something. So this is a major problem, major problem. Again, of course, we have to debate all those other things, like why do people do overtime? And why is it necessary? Is it really necessary? And I'm conflicted about that. And I'm sure people on the audience are going to chat with me. And I'm conflicted because, yes, overtime should never happen. Overtime should always be paid. But sometimes overtime is necessary when there are certain problems in the production. So I'm happy to debate that sometimes it's inevitable, but it's not inevitable if there is a bad production schedule, or if it was badly produced, or if there's too many last-minute changes that require more time. All these things are things that need to happen. We need to kind of start talking more about this, you know. And I do know, you know, Kazun Melinda is here talking that it's pretty usual in New York. I do know that in New York and on certain countries, like in the US, overtime is paid, but it was never paid in Britain, which is a surprise to many, I know. I wanted to share with you this link. This is, of course, keep in mind that I'm always talking about UK, because that's where I live and that's the companies that I know about. And so obviously every country has a different rule and everything. But if you guys go ahead and go to the Animation and Visual Effects Union, I'm part of this union, of course, saying that you should unionize. I think we all should unionize. But regardless of that, this is a union in Britain, which is powered by Bectu. Just listen to this part. I wanted to just make sure, I wanted to quote this article here. Let's say you average around 10 hours of unpaid overtime per week. Sometimes a bit less, sometimes a bit more, and sometimes a lot more. But let's say the 10 hours per week average. We're supposed to be pretty good at math in our line of work, but have you ever stopped to think that over the course of a year, averaging an extra 10 hours a week, you just gave the facility 3 months worth of your 40-hour week labor for nothing? That's 3 months of your time per year that you're giving away for free. Okay, like literally for free. So if you are in a company that is not paying overtime, and if you have this problem, remember that you're giving away 3 months for free. Remember when everyone is always complaining, oh, I don't work for free. Oh, no, I would never work for free. I always get paid. Because if you're working for free, it's a hobby. It's not a job, you know. So this is really a reality that a lot of us work. You know, I've worked like this for decades now, without overtime, just because we were never allowed to get paid overtime. The reason why I wanted to do this chat today is because I feel like it's on our power also to stop this in some way. And so let me show you this, for example, here. This is also another really interesting article that Bectu also has on their page, which talks about DNAG, And as they say here, during the pandemic, DNAG attempted to cut wages, and basically they tried to cut the wages to everyone, but fortunately, some artists got together, some of them were on Bectu, on the union, and they managed to kind of stop this a bit. And so this is a problem that can be solved if we unionize, if we get together, and also if we become more strong. And also not only that, but I think we need to, as artists, become a bit better at choosing the companies that we want to work for. I want to wrap up the Bectu thing by saying to you that you should go ahead and check their documentation. There's some really nice flyers talking about the ethical for animation charter, which kind of talks about how the company should be just social justice and sustainability, how there should be fair pay, how they should be paid overtime, respectable for employees, crediting people. All these things are being done by unions, and I think it is about time for us to start kind of thinking about this and really... There's also other things that I would like to share with the audience. There's also like a code of practice here that is actually trying to be implemented by the UK Screen Alliance as well, that talks about how the company should pay overtime and all those things. So again, you're not alone. There's people, there's websites you can go and visit. If you want to have let's lighten the mood a little bit by me showing you something really cool. So this is actually, if you want to try this in Nuke, if I know some of you are Nuke artists, there is a script here in this page that I just posted on the forum. And if you go down here, it's basically an hour rate calculator inside of Nuke. And basically what happens is that in this thing, you basically can put your yearly salary, then you can put how many hours per week you work. And then it basically determines... how much percentage are you getting actually paid? For example, if you work 60 hours per week, you're actually only earning £6.41 per hour. So it's really interesting for you to start calculating how much your rate really is if you're working full-time, and if you're working overtime, and if you're working many more hours than the allocated hours that you were supposed to work. Really quickly, this is not, of course, a problem only in the visual effects industry. If you go to this page here, for example, that I'm going to post on the chat as well, this is from IGDA, which is basically accounting for video games industry, which it also has a summary of statistics for the video games industry. And if you look at incentives in overtime, and just look at this, because this is really, really, really frightening for me. Generally, freelancers do not negotiate incentives or bonuses as part of their compensation. 69% had none compensations. But 13% did say that they negotiated royalties or shares tied to the success of a game. This is in the video games industry. Or company equity, like 8%. Similarly, most freelancers, 58%, did not negotiate extra compensation for overtime hours worked beyond the normal office hours. About half of the freelancers, 51%, reported that they had not been expected to work unpaid hours on a contract in the past 2 years, but left 37% who had been expected to work unpaid hours and 11% who were not sure. But there are other problems, like if you go all the way to Vancouver, for example, you can see that in July 2020, for example, the company Scanline VFX is actually being there's a file complaint to them for not paying overtime, for example. And this is, again, very scary stuff. This is Scanline Vancouver. Current and former Scanline VFX employees report the studio does not pay overtime unless people work more than 45 hours per week. According to the Employment Standards Act, which sets minimum standards, non-union workers, people working more than 8 hours a day or 40 hours a week are entitled to overtime. Again, another problem. And this has now been a formal complaint by the union over there. Why are people paying? Why do we have to have overtime? That's the first thing, I guess. That's the first problem that I see here as an issue. And I guess that could come from poor production, tight deadlines, basically the race to the bottom that they usually have in terms of quotes, and also like not negotiating with clients when changes are made. And also, but I also think it has to do with us. We as artists should also complain about overtime, either to a union or either to our employee, or make decisions of leaving a company if they don't pay you the overtime. I think the buck stops here. All these people have never been paid overtime. So now the time has come for us to kind of complain about these things and really put the horn on this. So I really advise you all to start retweeting, start tweeting, and start talking about all these things as more as possible and as publicly as possible. Because for me, I think this ends with us. We are the ones that have the power to change this, the same way that DNEG and, of course, also Outpost have made decisions because they knew this shit could not fly anymore, you know. So let's open up the lines because I really want to hear what you guys have to say about this, because this is a radio show. So first of all, thank you so much for calling the show. You're the first caller.
Yes, my name is Gregorio, and I'm in Accra, Ghana. I am a VFX comp. Currently, I mostly do cleanups and replacements. And yeah, and I'm a filmmaker also.
What do you want to say about it? I guess, you know, I just bombarded everyone with links, and I bombarded everyone with a lot of opinions, a lot of things. I'm very passionate about this because when I was the head of Nuke at the mill, I was always fighting for my artists to get paid, to get overtime, to get as much income as they could for the work that they were doing. Sometimes I succeeded, sometimes I didn't succeed, but at least I tried very hard. And I think it's up to us to start really pushing these companies as much as we can. So what do you want to say about this? What do you think, and what do you want to say about this?
I'm actually pretty surprised though to see this come out, because where I am, what I know is if people are being employed, they actually inform the company about overtime. So the first company that I worked for, it wasn't a film company, it was a normal company, and they had part of their laws that every 1 hour overtime you get certain amount of payments. So to hear that these companies like outside, when I mean outside, like outside Ghana, they were not paying overtime, I'm pretty surprised. I was pretty surprised to see the post. I think I saw it yesterday or this morning, I'm not sure, on Twitter, and I was pretty surprised though. Because where I work now, at the company that I work for, I'm the only person that does what I do. I'm in the film and in the VFX. Here I don't hear of many. So I do get overtime. Good. I mean, I sort of, sometimes I get home 5 a.m. and I do get overtime for all those hours.
Let me ask you this then, because I think this is really important to kind of consider. I'm really glad that you're getting paid overtime. Really glad. And I'm really happy that your company is doing that, because I do think it is a shameful situation where these companies in the UK only now are paying overtime. And it's ridiculous that they only now woke up in 2021 to this problem.
They've been sleeping all these years.
Exactly. So where all this money went, I guess I went. But anyway, like, what do you think about this? Because why do you think we have to work overtime? Because obviously there's a conflicting thing here for me. Sometimes I do understand that sometimes you do have to work late because something is delivering. But why are we actually all working overtime? Why do we even have to work overtime? Because, you know, in certain of the industries, we don't work overtime. Why don't we just extend deadlines? Why don't we work in a more smart way? Where do you think the root of the problem comes from? Where do you think why do we have this problem with overtime? Where do you think it comes from?
I think I'll just start by personally. When I have like deadline, I sort of work overtime to meet that deadline. Or if it's not like rushed project, then I do not do overtime. I think it's all the timeline that is given. So I think the root of all these things is deadlines, and probably someone somewhere is delaying some.
And do you think, because I understand that it's deadlines and a lot of times it's the clients, but I feel like the companies themselves, have to, please go ahead. Please go ahead.
Yeah. I think the companies, the representatives have to stand up for the artist.
Yeah.
More like, okay, you want us to get this done. This is how long we can take
Yeah.
to get done. You shouldn't rush us, because art, you can't rush art. If
Yeah.
you rush it, you're not going to get a good job
I know,
out
but
of
that,
it. It won't
but
come
you
out
see,
nice.
they don't think it that way because remember,
Exactly.
most of these companies are not companies owned by artists. They are owned by banks. They're owned by insurance companies. They're owned by huge companies that have multiple companies on their
Yes,
portfolio. If you look at the
very true.
situation of all these companies in London. I still remember when the mill was bought by like a banking company, you know, and of course they don't understand anything about visual effects. They're just like buying it to get some profit and basically just working profitability. So I guess the problem comes from there. When you're trying to like do this as a straight business, it's very difficult to be profitable. I don't really believe that visual effects can be very profitable because the problem inherent is that it's very difficult to do. You know, it's incredibly time consuming. It requires a lot of skill, which
Yep.
sometimes we don't have skill.
Yep.
There's a lot of communication issues. There's a lot of deadlines and a lot of studios and a lot of fights and bidding wars. So I really find it very difficult for any company to be profitable. I feel that we have an issue, and the issue comes from the ownership of IP. I feel like companies are working on other IP, like visual effects companies are working on the film studio's IP, and in reality, the visual effects company should either have a stake on the IP or they should have their own IP. Because I feel like they will never be profitable because they're just being treated as a service company. And you know how it goes, you know, shit rolls downhill. So obviously we are the ones that pay that price. We are the ones on the bottom that pay for the bad decisions made on the top. So this is a really big problem, and I feel like it's going to take years to be solved, but it's good that I see some companies changing this, but I don't really think this is not really going to solve anything, because by having DNEG and Outpost and even other companies now starting to pay overtime, isn't it going to be that we're just going to have more overtime because now it's paid? So probably it will just be that people do overtime anyway. And we should not be doing so much overtime. We should be working less and for longer instead of working too much in a very short amount of time, because it's not healthy to work in a short amount of time. It's healthy to work in a long term.
Yeah.
I don't have a solution, but this is a huge problem, you know.
Yeah, come to think of that, here is a case whereby everyone will want to have some of that overtime payment cake. So now artists will tend to work overtime and sort of, per my experience, when you're an artist and you're working on a project and you don't take a bit of time off, like to get your eyes off the work you're doing and then just come back, you sort of miss something. It really helps when you just look away and then you come back to work on it. Now, come to think of it, if people start working overtime just because every company now is paying overtime, I feel like there are going to be less better work. Should I put it that way? No work, better production. I think I would just put it that way. Because now everyone wants to work overtime because they are going to be paid. So, yeah, there should probably be a better solution than just the companies agreeing to pay overtime.
Yeah.
I think overtime should only be done when it's needed.
Yeah,
like really needed.
But here's the thing. Here's the thing that I know it's controversial if I'm going to say this, because I remember when I was working, even now when I work at my own company, and obviously I do overtime on my own company, on my own projects, but that's my problem. You know, it's me. I'm working for me, so I can do whatever overtime if I want to, you know, because I always do late nights and I am a night creature. But my problem with this is that it's very difficult for you to do something really good with limitation of time. You know, sometimes you need more time. Sometimes you need like extra work and extra hours on the day to actually wrap up something so creative or artistic. Because we're not really doing buildings, you know, we're doing art and we're doing visual effects and we're doing filmmaking. And sometimes you're inspired, sometimes you're not. Many times I wake up and I'm not inspired and everything goes badly. And then the next day I managed to do it, but then I lost a day and then I have to kind of get back that day, you know? So I think whenever we because when we're working with inspiration and we're working with creative things, it's really difficult to account to extra time. So I understand also that sometimes you do need overtime. I feel like it is very difficult to create something cool and amazing. I'll give an example. there was a lot of shit from everyone with Naughty Dog. Naughty Dog, the big company that did Uncharted and Last of Us, they got like a storm of shit on the press because they did overtime and people were working 50 hours a week and 60-hour weeks. But here's my question. Would The Last of Us 2 be that good if they wouldn't have worked overtime? That's the thing. I have a feeling that there is still a connection between working hard and getting something looking really amazing and working less and not getting it so amazing. So in fact, the reality here is that maybe the company needs to start thinking that maybe we need more time to do something to try to get to that creative mindset instead of trying to force it.
I agree.
Instead of trying to force it into a labor type of workflow where it's 9 to 5, like the Industrial Revolution labor time doesn't really work with creative work. You know what I mean?
I'm just looking at the chat and I'm seeing like someone saying it doesn't mind overtime, but myself, I used to say the same thing, that I don't mind overtime, but come to think of it, growing up, when you grow up, that's when the issues will start popping up.
Well, anyway, man, I already have like more people calling in, so I'm gonna leave you to it. Thank you so much for joining, and thank you so much for giving your opinion. Thank you so much, man. It was very appreciated. Okay, calling you in. Hello there. How you doing, man?
I'm pretty fine, and you?
I'm very good, thank you. So, first of all, thank you so much for calling. Thank you so much for being part of the call-in show. So, what do you think about all of this? And so, introduce yourself and tell the audience what you do and where you're calling from.
Yeah, like stand up from chair. Hi, my name is Mikhail, and I work overtime. My name is Mikhail. I am IT. I work in IT industry, and I'm working in CG industry. I'm from Russia.
And what's your, like, you work in the ITs? What's your position? What do you do on IT?
In the position of system administrator.
Okay,
managing data centers and etc.
I see. And so, what would you like to say about all of this? And
I like to say. You talk about how it stands in UK, how it stands in States, but I would like to talk about how it's going in Russia.
Okay, cool. I'm very curious to know how that's going. How's that going over there?
Yeah, it's very funny. So, last person, I forgot the name, sorry, who was calling?
Gregorio. Yeah, Gregorio.
Yeah, Gregorio was talking about rushing work of people of art, and we in Russia have saying that when you understanding that work will take much more time, the job will take much more time, and like your managers, okay, we give you some more people, and you like, it's not working like that. Sometimes you need time, and you cannot just throw in more people to make it faster.
Yeah. It doesn't work that way now, because this is not like a machinery. We're not like gonna. You can't like.
We have seen in Russia that 9 women can give a birth to a baby in 1 month.
Oh my God, that's a cool thing. I mean, I guess, are you guys in Russia paid overtime, or is it not paid? Like, how does it work over there?
Yeah. So we have, I think I came with 5 cases. First case, it's you can work overtime. You sometimes, as you already was talking about, sometimes you do need overtime just to when it's
when things are not going well, I guess, like if there's problems, because obviously sometimes things don't go as planned.
It's reasonable.
Imagine sometimes the render goes down, or maybe there's a crash, or sometimes maybe there's something that doesn't flow well, or maybe you've made a decision that didn't work out and you have to change it. That's of course creative work, but I guess the solution would be companies should start looking at implementing that already on the quote, right? So that when they're doing the quote, they should already put a few days extra in case things don't go as planned, right? And I feel like they never do that. They always undercut as much as possible, and they always put as less time as possible to do a certain task. Like if you tell them that it's going to take 5 hours, they probably say, "Oh, you can do it in 3." It's always like that. When in fact, what should happen is people should say, "Okay, no, I need 7 hours to do that instead." So I think that's the thing. Don't you think that's the problem?
Yeah, sometimes for me it's work like when client ask how much will it take. I say usually it takes around 3 days, but some inspiration got me and I did it in 1 hour. That is really was the situation. I just did it in 1 hour, and after an hour I gave him final job and he already liked it. But next time with the next job, I told him that it will take 3 days, and he was expecting after 1 hour job already to be done, but it took 1.5 weeks. So
did he get paid? Did he get paid for that?
Yeah,
time?
No. I get paid for overtime. This is not the case, but you can't like people say that math is art, but art is not math. You can't precisely tell how much it will take.
So and what about like what else would you say that could be the problem? Because obviously, what can we do? Because that's really why we're here. That's why we're discussing this. Because obviously companies can start deciding to give overtime or not give overtime. Do you think the answer is all of us to unionize on our own countries? Do you think the answer is for us to blacklist the companies that don't pay overtime? How do you think we solve this?
I think that people who work with time management, producers and people in production must know about risks of overtime.
Mm-hmm.
Like put it in list, but it's not always to be done overtime, but it could be done, and so when it happened, when it happened, it would not be a surprise for everyone.
Yeah. Because
sometimes it happens.
I'm glad you're saying about the risks, because there are huge risks. I'm not even talking about the production risk anyway. There's huge risks of doing overtime. I personally, from my own personal experience, can tell you that I am paying the price for all the overtime I did when I was still at the mill and at Nexus and other companies that I worked for. Not that they're to blame, I did the overtime because I did it, and I could have said no, but I didn't, because obviously I've always lived in the companies where it was frowned upon. It was like joked if you didn't work overtime, because working overtime like 10 years ago was like a badge of honor. People really took that as a badge of honor, that, oh my God, I worked this much late and these many hours. So it was always an embarrassment if you didn't want to follow along and tag along, because it gets a bit tribal. People follow along other people. It becomes almost like a tribe, and then everyone is working overtime. And if someone doesn't want to work overtime, then they get shamed because they didn't work overtime. So I'm paying the consequences now. There are a lot of physical and health problems of working overtime. I can tell you, for example, that I have back problems now because I've sitting too long working like 12, 13, 40 hours a day. I also have optical nerve damage because I worked too much in front of the computer. I have like concentration issues because I burned out when I was working too late at the mill. I was completely burned out, so now I have concentration issues. I have headaches, and as I'm getting older, it becomes even worse. So there's huge problems coming from working overtime. And so I really would say to everyone here, I know that it sounds awesome that you're gonna get paid for the overtime. But be careful, because money is not everything. And yes, you will get paid by this overtime new trend that now is happening. But don't forget that your life, your health doesn't have a price. And even if you get that 1.5 extra money, How much are you going to spend later on in your life when you have back problems, when you have eye problems, when you need glasses, when you can't concentrate, when you have headaches, and even worse things? You can have much worse problems because of working too much. Because if you don't sleep enough, you can have permanent damage. You can have, you can develop cancer. You can develop dementia. You can have mental problems. There's all sorts of problems that can happen. So I know that we're now starting to get paid for the overtime, but it is a dangerous road to also just think that it's just money and that you're going to get so much more money now. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, like for example, you know that in Japan a lot of people die from overworking.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, and even in Japanese language they have a word that means death from overworking. It says about something.
Yeah, no, I know, but it's true. But it happens here as well. I'm not saying that. We're pretty young, and obviously, we're now starting to have the old people coming from this industry, and I think we're all gonna start seeing more and more of those problems. We're gonna start seeing people having dementia, having mental issues, having headaches, having cancers, having all sorts of problems because of the amount of time that they worked. Anyway.
Yeah, if not, we have it's already.
Yeah, exactly. Well, anyway, thank you so much for calling in, man. I'm going to jump on to the next call. Thank you so much for being part of the show. I really, really appreciated you calling in and give us your perspective from Russia, which sometimes, I didn't even know, and there's not a lot of information sometimes coming out. So thank you so much for calling in, man.
So much I could tell you.
Well, cool, man. Thank you so much for calling in. I hope you have a great day, okay?
Yeah, you too.
Thanks,
Bye.
man. Bye. GLM Studios, GH. I feel that reps misjudge the work, so they quote any days that they think it will be done, forgetting that not all problems have the same solution. Yes, you're absolutely right. I think this main problem really comes from a misunderstanding sometimes that artistic endeavors take more time. Sometimes you need more time to develop something. Doing an animation is a creative endeavor, Doing a matte painting is a creative endeavor. You can't just get things to work right away. Famin Pan says, most of the time it's the quality check. Sometimes we have 5-15 rounds quality check, around 20 hours plus. That costs a lot, especially for Marvel Productions. You're right. There's a lot of levels of quality. There's directors, there's CEOs, there's production, there's the producers from the film, there's the producers from the company, there's the visual effects supervisor from the show, there's the visual effects supervisor from the company, there's the visual effects supervisor from the other company, then you have the directors, the producers. It's just too many people. We're going to talk more about this on this show, for sure. I will, to my best ability, to put the horn on as much stuff that is not working as it should as possible. And I think you have the same power. You can tweet it, you can retweet it, you can post it, you can share it, you can talk about it, you can join a union. There's so many things we can do. It's time for us to really fight this thing, because it's too much time already. We've spent decades working too much. We've spent decades working overtime. We spent decades basically destroying our health for these productions. And as much as you guys love them, and as much as you guys think they're amazing, always remember, it's just a fucking film. It's just a fucking commercial. They're not important. What is important is your health. What is important is your life. What is important is your family, your children, your pets, what you're doing as a person, developing as a person. You need to really take charge of your own business, of your own destiny. So if a company is not paying overtime, maybe time is gone to actually start looking for another company. It's time for us to do something about this. I'm so fucking fed up of just talking about this and talking, and no one ever does anything. We need to start doing something about this. We need to start stopping this happening anymore. Let's not celebrate this shit. This should have happened years ago. It's too late. They should have done it years ago. But it's good that they're doing it now. But this is not enough. All of them have to do it. Every single company has to do it. And it's about time for us to kind of stand up for this, because this is shameful behavior. So I just really want everyone on this call to think hard about this. Really think about that sentence I have on the screen, that I keep putting on the screen. I know it's simplified, but it's really important. Remember, if you work 10 hours of unpaid overtime per week, that is 3 months for free that you're paying for someone. Now ask your question, would you work for free? Would you do anything for free? Are you really working paid? Are you actually being paid? Because if you work for 80 hours a week, your rate is actually half now. So always have those things in mind. Let's do something about this. And let's not give more. Let's not give free time to people. Let's put these companies in question. Let's basically, talk with unions, talk with lawyers, try to make better contracts. I think the time has come for us to basically start taking charge, because we are the important people on this industry. We are the artists. The visual effects is nothing without the artists. And if the artists are not there to work, nothing will happen. None of these things will be done. So I just really want everyone to really leave this stream thinking about what are the steps I'm going to do to make this better. And even if you are afraid of being blacklisted, even if you're afraid that maybe they will come after, do something anonymous. It's always possible for you to do an anonymous Twitter account. It's always possible for you to share things privately. It is possible for you to talk with unions. It is possible for you to talk with lawyers to make better contracts. There are possibilities for you to fight this against these companies and the way that these studios are operating. So, and you're not alone. You saw all the people calling here and also all the people on the chat. We are not alone. We're together. We can all work better if we're all together and basically become stronger. Anyway, I'm going to shut up now, and I'm going to call in the next caller.
Hey, man. Can you hear me?
Yes, I think everyone can hear you as well. So, my friend, how are we going to solve this? What do you want to say? Obviously, maybe some people don't know you. Do you want to introduce yourself first?
Oh, yeah. Hi, my name is Bruce Wayne. I own Wayne Industries here in India. We shifted from Gotham City. I'm just joking. Moshi. Say we can use Marvel characters. So, anyways, my name is Sajil. I work in India. I have my own company. Anyways, about the before going to the solving part, I wanted to talk about the question you asked to Gregory, Gregory, I think.
Yeah.
The first caller.
Yeah.
You asked like where did the problem stem from? Now I've worked as a young guy, like when I was hardly like 20 or something. I started my career in UK, and I've worked in India as well in the young age. So I don't know about UK, but in India in early days, the issue was a lot of guys didn't have high-speed broadband internet at home. So that's how I think it started here, at least. Like in the early days, they would sit back in office at late hours just to have air conditioning on because, things are too hot at home, and watch movies or whatever on the company's internet. And then the managers started noticing, hey, you guys are here, you might as well work. So Mikhail is saying,
I like that. Like since you guys are here, you might as well work. I like that.
Yeah, so it kind of started off like that. That's what I'd seen, and it actually stemmed not from VFX industry. It started with IT and coding industries. Someone like Google and people. I mean, not Google in particular, but like IT companies basically who do programming and stuff. So I think that's where it stemmed off from, at least in the early days here in India. Now, about the overtime, here's my question, right? It has a flip side. Like I've seen both the work cultures firsthand. Like when I would be in UK, most of the guys, they won't even touch their phones. Like they'll just use their phones. And I'm generalizing. I'm not saying one particular person. There's always like all people are different, but
of course,
they would only use phones in lunchtime, or if there's an extremely important call from family or a friend, then they would pick up. Otherwise, they would dedicatedly work. While over here, a lot of times, like, yes, you would have a mix of people, Like someone would be dedicated and decide to leave at sharp at 6 in the evening or 5, depending on company times. Others guys would laze around by the coffee machine, talk, have 50 cigarettes, whatever, and they would prefer to stay at 8, 9, 10. Sometimes even due to traffic, they would say like, okay, if I leave now, I'm going to be stuck in traffic for 2 or 3 hours, and I'm guilty of doing that myself. Instead, let's stay back for 2 more hours, and if I leave late, then I'll see lesser traffic.
Yeah, of course. But that's fine. But that's fine, Sajal, because you did that in your own volition. Yeah. You did that because you made that decision to have less traffic, and you made that decision yourself. What should happen is that we, for example, to solve that problem, we should all have different time frames. Maybe we could come in at 11 in the morning and leave at 8, or maybe we could come in after lunch and leave at 9. There should be flexibility in time and working.
I did have that.
Yeah.
I did have that luxury. Yeah. But here's the thing. How do you differentiate people who are just trying to get just more money by not doing anything overtime, right? That means you're going to have to hire more people to keep an eye on the other guys that, okay, are they doing their work on time?
But that's easy to solve. That's easy to solve because you can have systems that know that you're logging in. You can have systems that know if the mouse is moving. You can have systems to know if you're actually opening up the shots, and you can see the timestamps on the frames. You can see the timestamps on the scripts. You can see the timestamps on the deliveries. That's easy. And obviously someone will always abuse the system. Of course, even on my company, even when I was at the mill on our department, there was always 1 or 2 people abusing and not working enough. But you know what happened? They would get canned. They would get fired after a while, because if you do that too often, you start to be noticed by that, So that, I think that eventually kind of eases off, Yes, sometimes maybe someone could take advantage, but, the certifuge will not last for too long. They will end up being caught, No, but sorry, I interrupted you. Go for it. I interrupted you. Go for it.
So coming on to the solution of this thing, and
you have the solution. Fine, you have the solution. Fuck, why didn't you call early? You have the solution. Let's go for it. Go for it.
So here's the thing. I think it trickles down from business aspect all the way to arts, right? And let's say a particular project is, let's say it's $100 or 100 GBP or whatever. $100 per day as a company cost to make something, to keep the math easy.
Yeah.
What happens is, again, the thing that you mentioned, the race to the bottom of the pit to undercoat each other and try to get projects, that's a major issue. Now, when a company says $100, sometimes business executives are not considering the costs of everyone. Let's say they'll ask an artist, right? For example, if they're good enough. That, hey, how many man days it's going to take you? And let's say I say I'll do it in let's say 5 man days work, right? So it's going to cost $500 to make something. Now, what if I get sick, or I'm not there, or if I'm not able to do something? That means they might have to bring in a freelancer for next 2 or 3 days. So ideally, they should cost for $500 plus that $300 for a backup thing. As a company, I'm talking about studios here.
Yeah.
And then your line producer, the sales guy who would be taking a certain percentage as profit. So the actual $500 job that we thought it would be, it might go up as much as like $1,000 or $1,200 or $1,500 even, depending on your seat cost. I think a lot of companies don't consider this, and they just will do the cheapest cost. So imagine if they had quoted $500, something went down, they are instantly in losses, and that creates a problem and crunch time. Another thing, when planning projects, yes, sometimes we get projects at last minute, and there's nothing much you can do. Like if I talk about TV commercials, or let's say I'm working with Volkswagen Group or Toyotas or Ferraris of the world, or it could be anything, right? Unilever or anything. A lot of times those companies take a lot of time to decide on the key visuals and things like that to get approval at their end before even the agency gets a go ahead, right? So sometimes, yes, I understand things come in a bit late. But whenever possible, this is what I used to do. I used to get timelines from my clients and reverse calculate from their deadline to what we need to do, and accordingly we'll allocate manpower. And what I would tell to my artists is see, okay, you have a week for this to do, as an example. You do it in 1 day, you do it in a week, it's not my problem. 1 week is a realistic time to finish this. And that would come after gauging things, right? Like over a period of time, like who's strong in what, like are they strong in modeling, or maybe they're slower in comping. So allocating right resources and pre-planning things does help. And if you think you are you don't have enough manpower for bigger projects, then yes, this has to be highlighted to the business executives or whoever your boss is, and say, hey, you're gonna need more people. And I had 1 year running with this company, and we used to work Monday for Friday, which is unheard of in India. And mostly my guys would go home by 6 or 7. Yes, there were one-off odd times that when people were called in on Saturdays or pull a late night till like 10 or 11. But that was like very few instances. And I think things can be planned. Really, if you plan things, and if there is cohesion, especially the business X, if they are willing to understand the process and what is required, and then be transparent with clients that, hey, it's going to take this many man days. You can, in this case, bring in 9 women and have a child in 1 month,
But isn't the problem? But the issue here, of course, is that the companies themselves, like the client, also in the studios, they work the companies to the bone. They really push them down for the bidding and all those wars. And how do you solve that? Because as an artist, the only thing I
you
can
let it go. You let those projects go. Like I have a project right now. I'll give you rough numbers. I found it from my main guy, right? So there's this project. It's a huge asset build project, and the company they are pitching to, they got 2 quotes, and they are so vastly different. One is like almost 120,000 pounds worth of money. And for the same job, this another company has quoted like 32 or 33,000 pounds, which is insanely huge difference of money,
Yeah.
And obviously, we are planning somewhere in between, which is a logical quote. So no one is overworked, or should one of the vendors not able to do their job, we can still afford to get someone else on board. But this planning has to be done, and till the companies try to outrun other companies with costing and running to the bottomless pit of probably doing it for free one day, they're going to make losses. And I mean, in the long term, they won't be able to sustain,
But you know what my fear is? My fear is that we won't be able to solve this because a lot of people are just trying to earn money as much as they can. And in the process, we lose a lot of people. We lose a lot of creative people. We lose a lot of... And I even get like people that are now starting saying, I'm actually not going to go into the industry because I can't, I hate it. All this is horrible. So we're having that problem where at some point the companies do need to kind of like, I think it has to come from the top. We need to have more supervisors, more leads, and more people blowing the whistle and really convincing management and upper management that this is on the long run a really big mistake. And so if the company is bidding on a project and that project does not have sustainability, or if that project does not bring in enough money, I think the company should just skip that project. That's the thing. I think they're too afraid of skipping bidding.
Yep.
But if they're going to bid too much to the negative almost, they shouldn't be bidding. Fuck, man. We all, if we go to a supermarket and I try to buy some fruit, and if I don't have enough money to pay the fruit, I can't convince the supermarket to give me it for free. You can't live outside your means. You cannot, like the same way these studios cannot do projects outside their means. If a project requires 100,000 pounds, then it requires 100,000 pounds. It can't be done by 80 or 75. I think this is why we have so many companies that went bankrupt, because of that, because of their loose way of bidding and trying to work so that the next job pays for the one before. That's not sustainable,
Another thing is there's this book called Blue Ocean Strategy or something. I forgot its name. It's a very interesting book, right? So that is what I've been dabbling with as well. Like, yes, we get into this industry for the love of creating the next Marvel movie or the next DC movie. But having said that, big studios like Disney or 20th Century Fox, which is Disney now, like those kind of guys, they take advantage of this thing. There's a lot of money in corporate films, where they need CGI, and they don't need as high-end CGI as Hollywood, but a lot of times they pay more than films in comparison. So, which is crazy, like for a smaller studio teams. So, like studios, if they stop being scared that, oh, if we are going to lose this business, like they are not the only ones where 3D is used. Like, look at e-coms. AR, VR, MR is coming up a lot everywhere. Medical animations, they need, yes, it's not as exciting as blowing things up, but hey, as a company, those are viable options where you can still earn money and then do those passion projects if the money is right. And if major studios start doing this and stop being scared and taking up other projects and realize, hey, we can earn more money here as well, then the bigger studios will feel the pinch, because then suddenly studios are not trying to underbid each other, and they have lesser vendors. That means you want quality, you spend the money. Then why can't smaller studios and smaller artists also scared?
Well, the problem, it's the same thing, like it's the same thing from what, for example, on the comments, we have 3D Chief saying, what prevents people from asking for protections on their contracts? And his answer is fear in caps locks. People are all afraid. That's the problem. People are all afraid. And you have to reach to a point you have to think about yourself and think, okay, is it worth it? Like, if you're working in a company that is not respecting your time and not giving you the benefit, not giving you the payment, not giving you the respect for the work you're doing, then they don't deserve your respect back, which means maybe you shouldn't work for them anymore. Let's start thinking it the other way around. We should be starting to blacklist them. You know what I mean? Like, I should think like, no, I'm not going to this company because they're shit. No, I don't want to go to that company because they're horrible. I should be the one blacklisting them, not them blacklisting the artists. And I think if we all start doing that, if we all start thinking, maybe I'm not going to go there, then they'll have some difficulties finding people. And that's when they're going to start changing. That's the thing. That when they start having problems finding talent, when their name goes through the mud, that's when they will start changing, because it becomes too much of a PR nightmare to be considered the bad company. There's a lot of companies that are already considered the bad companies, and they don't like that term. They don't like to be known like that. So I think it's up to us. It's up to us to blacklist these guys and these companies and these people. Otherwise, nothing will ever happen. We'll always be debating this and talking about this next year, next month, and next time another company talks about overtime, we'll all be clapping and tweeting and putting tweets saying, "Oh my God, amazing! That's so good." No, it's not amazing. It should have happened 10 years ago. So I feel like we need to blacklist people. Let's just do it, because
also,
there's other work, man. There's other work. There's other stuff to do. There's always a company that will hire you. You don't need to really work on specific companies. I know it's really cool to get on the team that won the Oscar. I know it's really cool to be on a team that is working on the latest blockbusters. But think about this. Whenever I go to the movies and I go to see a blockbuster, they are usually shit. So why do I even care? Because these are bad films anyway. And I'm just like, I think people are confusing their work with personal work. When you're working on a film, you are not doing personal work. You're just a factory worker working for the company. And so if you want to work in cool stuff, and if you want to do your own things, then go and do your own things. Don't expect to be the artist on these companies, because you're just a worker, not an artist. That's the thing that you need to kind of start thinking about.
As far as like, if you have skills, be it 3D, compositing, anything, design, there is going to be a job somewhere. Like, you can make a TV commercial for your local pizza business, or like, could be anything, right? Like the local brewery or smaller businesses. There are so many new products which come every day anyways. So it's not like if all these studios blacklist you for whatever reason, you're going to be out of work. That's like, statistically, it's impossible to truly blacklist someone from everywhere and that person starves to death.
we all should get overtime. We all should work less. And that's it. Like that, it should all be like that. It should all be normal. And then we can talk about other things. This is the thing. And I hope that we can get to there. I really hope we get to a place where that's the norm and not just the exception. But, anyway. Talking too much anyway. I think I think we're gonna wrap up this discussion.
I'm also done. Yeah, I'm also done. So
cool,
all right, cool. Thank you for having me on the call.
Thanks so much, man.
Out.
Thanks so much, man.
Gotta do some Batman stuff.
I'll see you later, man. Bye. Hey, Mikhail. I was just telling on the show that I happy to bring you in again, but I want to wrap up quite quickly. So.
At the end of the workday.
I posted on Facebook this a few hours ago about this meme. Overtime is voluntary.
Yeah.
Which happened a lot to me on my career. Whenever people would leave early, they would get this snarky remark like, "Oh, half time today only," or they would joke or say, "Oh, thanks for popping in." And I'm guilty of these things as well because I would tag along as well, and I would also say these things sometimes. But I've learned now not to do it. But a lot of people do that. A lot of people shame other people by telling them, "Oh, you're leaving at 6? Oh my God, you only do working half a day today." It is really shameful. It shouldn't really happen at all,
Yes, good move by employee.
Yeah, exactly.
How to make people do overtime. Yes. And some companies, I know that people can do overtime, people can't, may not do overtime, and overtime is paid. There is companies like this in Russia, but as far as I know, I heard about 3, I guess, out of 200.
That's not a lot. That's not good. That's very few.
Yeah. Yes, but let's wrap up.
Okay.
There is a lot I can add about overtime in Russia.
Okay.
It's a topic for another day.
Okay.
Be continuous.
That's fine. Okay. Cool. Well, thank you so much for calling again, man. I much appreciate your sending us this perspective. Okay. I'll have a great day, man. Let's wrap up this stream. So first question here comes from SS Tracks says, I think this problem applies to all computer workers. Programmers, developers, artists, layout designers, special effects specialists. We all work overtime if we are interested and if we have a passion for our work. Absolutely right. You are absolutely right, SS Tracks. You are absolutely right. I also do that as well. I work overtime if I really love something that I'm doing because it's an artistic endeavor. But that's the thing. We should all be paid for it. And on the UK, we don't get paid for it. In other countries also, we don't get paid for it. And not only we should get paid for it, but also we should not be forced to do it, or we should not be shamed to do overtime. And we should only do it when it's necessary and not overdo it. I think that's the biggest problem that we have. And then MTOJ says, while that's true, people still gotta pay bills. It's not easy. People can't just afford to not take on projects because it could mean they don't have money to pay the bills. It is true. You need to do what's best for you. And so if you feel that you are going to threaten your work because you are complaining about overtime, if you are feeling that you're being blacklisted, then of course you need to be careful because you have to pay bills. But then you need to put yourself slowly in a position of power. If the company is giving you a lot of heart shake, and if the company is not actually supporting you, maybe it's the time for you to slowly and quietly move on to another company that maybe treats you better. And this can be done quietly. You don't even need to tell them. You can just basically slowly decide to move or say, I want to move to another company or something like that. There's always a way to go around it, So let's see here. So Mishta Boj says, I have an interesting example. In my city, Belgrade, all taxi drivers are connected. If government or company that they are working for wants to lower their wages or wants to bring in Uber-like companies to the city, they all stop working. But not just that, they also block the roads, and they have one representative to negotiate the terms with government companies. They never over-exaggerate with their terms, and they always get satisfied agreements. We should find a way to connect like them. Yes, Absolutely. We should all get together. We should all unionize. We should do that as well. Maybe we should stop working and doing strikes as well until things get better. Maybe we need to gather several unions from several countries. There's a lot of things that we can do. And it starts by blowing the horn about all this situation and talking about it openly in open forums so that we all can try to solve this problem. So thank you so much, Mr. Sorry, I'm mispronouncing your name. Thank you so much, Mr. Bojek, for that opinion. It was really good. Thank you so much for saying that. Now, last but not least, this is going to be wrapping up the discussion. I have Creative Lions. Creative Lions is saying, do not let a London recruiter even tell you that they are going to factor overtime into your base pay, and try and reduce your overall salary in anticipation that you will be working overtime and making up for it. Common tactic used in other country with overtime. So yeah, Creative Lions has a really good point. Do not let recruiters to try to bring in overtime as something that is going to happen. You need to negotiate this. You need to prevent this to happen. You need to put them on checks. And if the company is looking fishy about certain things, maybe it's time for you to look elsewhere. I know I keep repeating myself. I'm not going to repeat myself anymore. I think we've covered this topic as much as we could. We're going to come back to this topic for sure, so don't worry about that. But yeah, I would like to thank everyone that called. Thank you so much for being so open. Thank you so much for calling in and for us to discuss all these things in an open forum. Thank you so much for everyone that discussed on the chat as well. Really appreciate. Let's keep this conversation going. You know, and remember, if you have any issues and if you need any help, please contact me. Maybe I can help. Maybe I can point you to the correct direction. Even if you just want to open up and explain your situation, you can contact me privately. You can contact me on social media, and LinkedIn, on Twitter. You can always join these conversations as well, but you can also contact me privately. I will never say anything that is told to me privately, but if I can help on any way, please contact me, because I think only when we're all sticking together, we can really make this work. And I think it's really up to us, you know, to make this work.